Let's take a quick little look here. Now we're in chapter 23 of Acts, and Paul is now in the hands of some Roman officials. Now all this happens because Paul has been going from town to town, and in each town he has stirred up individuals that really despise what Paul is talking about. Remember, Paul is a former Sanhedrin member. He's a individual that used to sit on that council board.
Right.
And he would go from town to town, and now he has removed himself from that. The Lord has called him. The Lord told him, Paul, it was hard for you to kick against the pricks, and called him into this ministry, and it's a ministry to the Gentiles. Even though his ministry is to the Gentiles, Paul's heart is for the Jewish people. And so he determined within himself that he is going to go and at least try with all his ability to convey this message of Jesus Christ as the Messiah to his own people. And as he goes there, he begins to enter into all types of obstacles. Different people that are looking and that remember him, that want to now kill him. And he's in a situation now where he has been arrested. And the governor that arrested him, the Roman governor of the province that the Jewish people are now under, is trying to understand, well, Paul, what's going on? And Paul's trying to explain it to them. And so we kind of get right into that now, where Paul is going to try to give another explanation as to why he's doing what he's doing. And we'll elaborate a little bit more on that as we go through it. But that's just a little brief overview of the background. Let's now go into the study. Acts 23.
Chapter 23. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said,
Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day.
And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. Then said Paul unto him,
God shall smite thee, thou whited wall, for sittest thou to judge me after the law, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law?
And they that stood by said,
Revilest thou God's high priest?
Then said Paul,
I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it is written, Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people.
But when Paul perceived that the one part was Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council,
Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead I am called in question.
And when he had so said, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the multitude was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees confess both. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees part arose, and strove, saying,
We find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel hath spoken to him, let us not fight against God.
And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down, and to take him by force from among them, and to bring him into the castle. And the night following the Lord stood by him, and said, Be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. And when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together, and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. And they came to the chief priests and elders, and said,
We have bound ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. Now therefore ye with the council signify to the chief captain that he bring him down unto you tomorrow, as though ye would inquire something more perfectly concerning him. And we, or ever he come near, are ready to kill him.
And when Paul's sister's son heard of their lying in wait, he went and entered into the castle and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions unto him, and said,
Bring this young man unto the chief captain, for he hath a certain thing to tell him.
So he took him and brought him to the chief captain, and said,
Paul the prisoner called me unto him, and prayed me to bring this young man unto thee, who hath something to say unto thee.
Then the chief captain took him by the hand, and went with him aside privately, and asked him
What is that thou hast to tell me?
And he said,
The Jews have agreed to desire thee that thou wouldest bring down Paul tomorrow into the council, as though they would inquire somewhat of him more perfectly. But do not thou yield unto them, for there lie in wait for him of them more than 40 men, which have bound themselves with an oath, that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now are they ready, looking for a promise from thee.
So the chief captain then let the young man depart, and charged him,
See thou tell no man that thou hast shewed these things to me.
and he called unto him 2 centurions, saying,
Make ready 200 soldiers to go to Caesarea, and horsemen 70, and spearmen 200 at the 3rd hour of the night. And provide them beasts that they may set Paul on, and bring him safe unto Felix the governor.
And he wrote a letter after this manner. Claudius Lysias, unto the most excellent governor Felix, sendeth greeting. This man was taken of the Jews, and should have been killed of them. Then came I with an army, and rescued him, having understood that he was a Roman. And when I would have known the cause wherefore they accused him, I brought him forth into their council, whom I perceived to be accused of questions of their law, but to have nothing laid to his charge worthy of death or of bonds. And when it was told me how that the Jews laid wait for the man, I sent straightway to thee, and gave commandment to his accusers also to say before thee what they had against him. Farewell. Then the soldiers, as it was commanded them, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. On the morrow they left the horsemen to go with him, and returned to the castle, who, when they came to Caesarea, and delivered the epistle to the governor, presented Paul also before him. And when the governor had read the letter, he asked of what province he was. And when he understood that he was of Cilicia,
I will hear thee,
said he,
when thine accusers are also come.
and he commanded him to be kept at Herod's judgment hall.
Chapter 23.
All right, that is chapter 23. All right, so what we have here, okay, let's take a look. Once again, here's Paul. You ever have one of those situations where, you just know that you're doing all that you know to do. You're just doing what you feel is right. And you have in your heart that your motivation, your desires, your thoughts, all good thoughts. I mean, you're really trying to fix things. And the more you seem to try to fix it, the worse things get. The more complicated they get. The more frustrating you find yourself. And you're wondering, like, Lord, where are you? All right? Paul is in this situation. Remember, this is town after town after town after town after town after town that Paul goes into, and riots break out. Issues are happening because the controversy that Paul is bringing is he's trying to change people's thinking. One of the hardest things you can do is when people believe a certain thing is to try to get them to think a certain way. All right. Now, we could go down the road and, talk about a whole bunch of stuff like that. Go into the schools and try to tell people evolution is not the actual. You're going to get all kinds of situations. Try to go in to tell somebody that Muhammad's not the Messiah. Try to change their thinking. You see the passion that would come out of that? Well, this is what's going on with Paul. Paul's going to these Jewish towns. Remember, these are not Christian towns. He's going to Jewish towns that believe in a certain custom. This is how they were raised. And he's telling them, your customs were not wrong, they're just fulfilled. And now we have to move to the next phase. And they don't want to hear it because they're looking at, we're going to live like this. Our fathers lived like this. Our forefathers lived like this. We live like this. Our children are going to live like this. Our children. And Paul's like, no, that's not how it's going to be. And even Stevens, before Paul, pointed out that you say your forefathers lived a certain way, but look at them, examine them for real. Which one of the prophets didn't your forefathers kill? So what you see is a resistance to the command to the Jewish people that was actually given by Moses. When Moses told them that there will come after me another prophet, speaking of Jesus, and when he shall come, you shall what? Follow him. All right, and so we see the controversy and the struggle, and we understand why. So Paul is in this situation, and we're going to get back to that situation of him trying in just a bit. We're going to see here in a minute that he's going to need some encouragement. All right, so in verse 1 it says, Paul earnestly beheld the council. Now it says he earnestly beheld the council. I can imagine when Paul is looking at this council, he's remembering some faces, because remember, he used to be what? He was a member of this council. Exactly. So he earnestly beheld the council and said, men and brethren. All right. Now he didn't call them fathers or sirs. He looked at them as almost like he would say, guys, fellas. He's trying to bring it a little bit more friendly or social, and a little bit less rigid in the communication. He goes, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. Now this is Paul, who has done a whole lot of craziness. Remember, he was there when Stephen was killed. But he understands how God deals with people in both their good behavior and also in their what? In their bad behavior. All right. So he's saying that he understands that he's in all good conscience, and one of the things that helps you to be in all good conscience is when you can be in that same attitude with other people. It is so easy for us. I mean, and I tell you, I have to correct myself on this a lot because I know it's wrong. When you see somebody doing something that you don't have a struggle with, you're okay with that. Don't bother you. All right? I've never had a problem with drugs or alcohol or anything like that, so it don't bother me. I mean, you could. This is just no issue. But there are people that do struggle with that, and for me to look at that person and go, why don't they just stop? Why don't they just get themselves together? It's because to me it just seems like it's something, why are you doing that? But until you stop and you say, okay, all right. Now, granted, their struggle is visible and obvious, because it's hard to be a drunk, it's hard to be an alcoholic, it's hard to be a drug addict, it's hard to be a junkie without it showing. The problem, though, is that a lot of our hang-ups that most people have are not so easily what? Seen. So, though the person that struggles with drugs, with crack, well, look at them. They ought to be. But then the things that another person struggles with, that I struggle with, or maybe you struggle with, is not so easily seen. Nobody knows about it, just you and God. All right. So therefore, what you got to then say is, wait a minute. We all struggle with something. If it's not temper, if it's not envy, if it's not jealousy, if it's not anger, there's something that we struggle with. Some things become very visible. All right, the person, the girl that's promiscuous, and did I say that right?
You got it right.
And doing all kinds of didn't sound right in my ears. And doing all kinds of stuff, and then winds up what? Pregnant. It becomes what?
Visible.
Very obvious. All right. But then there's a whole lot of other ones that are in the same boat that what? Did not become pregnant. So we pick on, look at her.
We can see it.
Because we can see it. But then there's somebody sitting right next to him that we don't know. But then we also got to recognize that there was what? Guy involved, right? But we don't see that until he gets what? Name. You see the point I'm making? It's so easy for us to point fingers at the stuff that we can see. It's a learning lesson, and I think this is what Paul was able to do. I can be okay with myself, but Paul knows there's no good thing in him. He knows that he's but filthy rags. He's the one that tells us this stuff. Right? But he can sit and say, I'm in all good conscience. Why? Because he is not attacking anybody else's shortcomings. And when you stop attacking other people's shortcomings, it's amazing how it frees you. If you really want to get free and feel comfortable with God, knowing that I fall short on so many things, on things that I should have done and didn't do, and things that I shouldn't have done and did. And then when you're okay and recognize that, wow, God, you have cleansed me from all of that, and you cover me from everything, and I can begin to learn and develop, and you give me time to grow and to become a better person, why should I make another person feel small or insignificant or belittle them because of their insignificance? When you are able to do that, you really become free. It's a great lesson to learn. Now,
We gotta get the beam out of our eye first.
there you go. It is easy to describe and easy to talk about. It takes a lifetime to learn to do. And it's not something that you conquer. It's something that you continue to work on. It's like, holding up a stick. If I say, could you hold this pencil up in the air? Well, when I give it to you right off the bat, you'd be like, no problem, and you hold it up. After about what? 10, 15 minutes, you're like, wait a minute, now this ain't as easy as I thought it was. All right, you started switching hands. You see? So anything easy seems easy until you have to live it for a what? A lifetime. Eventually, what's going to happen? The pencil's going to drop. And we all drop. We all will. We all will drop the pencil at some point in time on things that are very simple, on things that we know better than. All right? But the thing is, those of us that a lot of times live in a Christian environment, we conquer a lot of things, especially the visible things. We're good at that. I don't know why we are, but we are. But we still miss out on other things. And that's the problem with these Pharisees and these Sadducees. They have conquered the visible sins. Because you can't point your finger at any one of these people that are sitting in the council getting ready to judge Paul. You couldn't point your finger at any of them, so to speak. Speaking historically, I wasn't there, but I guarantee you couldn't point your finger at none of them, visibly. But inwardly, they got issues, and we're going to see that in a minute anyway. Paul's going to describe them as that. All right, let's go into it. So we see that this is why Paul can sit with all good conscience before God until this day. Okay, it says, and when he made that statement, look at verse 2. And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him in the mouth. It's like, he said, you sucker punch that guy right in his mouth. He's sitting here talking like he can hold. He goes, I got problems with him. I got problems. Ananias is like, I got problems with everybody. I don't like these people. I don't like these people. You can almost see Ananias saying, well, you think you all right with everybody, and you think everybody just needs a helping hand? No. I think we need to get rid of the crack dealer. I think we need to kill the dope addict. And I'm not saying we don't want to get rid of the crack dealer. We do want to get rid of that process. But we don't want to just go out there and just shoot the guy in the head, execute him right there on the spot. We don't want to just shoot the prostitute right there on the spot. We don't want to just go out there and just, every girl and that winds up pregnant, we just going to ship them out to Siberia. We don't want to do that. Ananias is like, no, I ain't like that. That's not how I do business. So he didn't like what Paul said. He had Paul smacked in the mouth. Now, we get ready to see why Paul is who he is. And so look at verse 3. It says, then Paul said unto him, God smite thee, thou white wall. Now, thou sittest to judge me after the law, and commandeth me to be smitten contrary to the law. Now, what is Paul saying? Paul called him a hypocrite. Paul called him, because what he called him was a whited wall. Now, what that means, Jesus used that term. He called the Pharisees whited sepulchres. Right? And what that meant was they were basically graves. But they painted a bright color, a bright white, so that they could be seen, so that you didn't accidentally touch them. Because anytime that one of the Pharisees would touch anything that was that had dead men's bones in it, they considered themselves to be unclean. So to avoid accidentally touching them, they would paint them white. So, and that white represents in all of the Christian and the Jewish experience as being pure. But what Jesus is saying, you painted white, a symbol of purity, But inwardly is what? All kinds of dead men's bones. And so this is what Paul is saying to this man, saying to the high priest. He called him a whited wall, a whited sepulcher. All right. So he's letting them know, you are corrupt. And then he explains to him why. For thou sittest in the seat to judge me after the law, and commandeth me to be smitten contrary to the law. So Paul is saying, so basically, Paul's telling them off very sophisticatedly. You ever have somebody tell you off so bad? They didn't cuss at you. They didn't they didn't go down that road. They didn't use the Busta Rhymes. They used this basic, high linguistic language and just talk and told you about yourself. And when they got finished talking to you, you would have wished they had just used profanity and cussed you out. You ever have people like that? They could just tell you off. Now that's what Paul did. Paul is just like, let me explain to you. All right, number one, I understand who you are. All right, now I can sit and be in complete comfort with all man's conscience, but I do know you. You are a hypocrite. You look the part, but inwardly you're evil. And I can prove it to you because you just broke the law. You're going to sit here and judge me by a law, because you're getting ready to judge me as the high priest. But you just now broke the law by having me smitten and hidden before you even heard my case. You can't punish a criminal. You can't execute punishment before you actually find out what they're guilty of. And Paul identifies that and shows right there, you just broke the law. You see how quick we can do? I mean, if you go down through your day, and don't ever do this, because you'll be discouraged. But if you go through your day, and if you were to take notes on every time you did or saw or thought or did something wrong, you have a nice little rap sheet. Don't ever do that, because that would just discourage you. When you realize how bad we can be. The thing is, when you do know that Lord help me, don't just take care of it right then and there. It's like somebody sometimes when you in the kitchen and you knock over, you spill milk. You don't just leave it there, just like, well, I'll get to it, because then it dries. Right? Then it mess up, starts, what it do? Starts smelling. Right? So when you don't clean up things right away, it leaves all kinds of, if you clean it up right, because we all going to knock over something in our lives. Clean it up as soon as you what? As soon as you do it. You ever walk in the kitchen and you have your slippers on and you step on the kitchen floor and you pick up your feet, slippers stay on the floor and your feet come up because it's something sticky, somebody just dropped some iced tea or Kool-Aid or something on the floor.
Setting you up.
And then you hear that sound. You're like, what in the world is on? And then you want to know who spilled stuff on the floor and then clean it up. So those are the things of life. It's like that in life. When you make a mistake, because we all are going to make mistakes. When you make mistakes, what do?
Clean it up.
You clean it up. And then you bring it to where? How do you clean it?
To God.
You bring it to the Lord. You bring it right to the Lord. And then you also ought to begin to address your own shortcomings, because we all got them. All right? Some of them are a little bit more significant than others, but we all got them. All right. So Paul, he says, you smitten me contrary to the law. And in verse 4, then now somebody is talking to Paul. And they that stood by said, revilest thou God's high priest? Look at verse 5. Then said Paul, I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest. For it is written, now he's quoting scripture. He's like, no, I know with my law. For it is written, thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. Wow. It is written, thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. It didn't say thou shalt not speak evil of good people. It says thou shalt not speak evil of the what? Ruler of thy people. And this brings up a very good point here. We're going to see this as we go through. We see, we're dealing with these Sadducees and Pharisees and so forth. The Bible says that we are not to speak evil of dignitaries. All right, that's in the book of Jude. And actually, I take that back. It's not in the book of Jude. The book of Jude says that it gives an example of us not to speak evil of dignitaries. I got that crisscrossed, but forgive me on that one. But the point is, God will allow people to be in office and a lot of times the person may not be the most upstanding individual. And it doesn't really matter what system you have, because the system can never be any better than the people that rule it. This Sanhedrin, this ruling class over the Jewish nation, was organized and set up by Moses with the direction of God. And it didn't matter really how well it was set up, because when you put people in it that have the potentiality to corrupt it, to misuse it, to become selfish with it, what happens? That happens, doesn't it? So what this teaches me and helps me to understand that a lot of times it doesn't really matter what system, whether we're Democrat, Republican, Federalist, Whip, Whig, Communist, whatever the case may be. You know, I don't want to be communist, but the point is, it doesn't matter what system you have when you have evil people over it, greedy people over it, because they will find a way. When you got a good system but bad people, your system is what? Bad. Yeah. Now, you had a time when the nation Israel had a king, a monarch. Now, nobody really wants to be under that kind of government today. But because we had a good monarchy with King David, they had a good what? A good system. Now, let me tell you this. When Jesus comes back and sets up his government on earth, what kind of government is he going to have? Now, granted, I'm giving you a description based upon my limited understanding, my ability to understand. So I'm just giving it a title, but that doesn't mean that's what it is. But this is the closest thing I can think of. But he's going to come as a what? As the king. That's a what? That's a monarch. But he's a king that's ruling by what kind of law? The law of who? God. Of God. So that's a theocracy. So he has a theocracy ruled by a king. Now you try to set that government up in the United States today, it won't work, because the person that you put on there is the person that's going to be what? The ruler, and however good or bad he is will determine how good or bad it turns out. Plus all of his good or bad advisors. Because the one thing that we will always say, well, no man knows it all. So maybe we got to get him advisors. Well, all these advisors are advising a lot of times based on their own self-interest. The beautiful thing about when God rules, he is all loving and knows it all. And that's going to be the beautiful part about why we will be able to truly feel that we're under a perfect government, perfectly ruled in a perfect system, because God will be the ruler of all. All right, so kind of went off on a deep end on that, but I figured I'd bring that out because a lot of times we wonder, well, what should we have? Should Christians be Democrats? Should Christians be Republicans? Should Christians be this? Should Christians be that? You should just be praying and ask God to give you wisdom, because I think all systems can be good if you get good people in it, and all systems can be bad when you got bad people in it. All right. So in verse 6 it says, and when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, men and brethren, I am a what? Pharisee. That's where he came from, right? Now what is Paul doing? Paul's being very astute here. He looked at his audience. He goes, I got Pharisees here and I got Sadducees. And I know what makes them flip out. All right? I know what makes Pharisees flip out. I know what makes the Sadducees flip out. And he's about ready to throw the dividing rod into this crowd. All right? Look what he does. So he says, he cried out in the council, men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, of the hope and what? Resurrection of the dead, am I called into question. So he's saying, I'm a Pharisee and the son of a Pharisee, and it's because I believe in the hope of the resurrection. That's the reason why I've been called. Now, what Paul did, he's telling the truth because he's talking about the resurrection of who? Of Jesus Christ. All right. Now, but he knew that when he threw that in there, the issue was no longer going to be about Paul. It was going to be about resurrection. And why did he know that? Let's take a look. And when he had said that, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the multitude was divided. Why? Well, verse 8 explains it. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, neither angels nor spirits. So the Sadducees don't believe in anything they can't see. We don't believe in no resurrection. I don't believe in no angels. I don't believe in no spirits. I don't believe in none of that mumbo jumbo, hocus pocus. That's what the Sadducees say. All right, we don't go for that. All right, but the Pharisees confess. The Pharisees confess both. So they believe in all that. All right, but Paul knew that once he threw that in there, that was going to cause a dividing because that was a touchy issue. Verse 9, and when there arose a great cry, the scribes that were of the Pharisees part arose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man. Now all of a sudden they don't see no evil in Paul. But if a spirit or an angel, wait a minute, the Pharisees believe in what? Spirits. The Pharisees believe in what? Angels. So they're saying maybe he got his wisdom from somebody outside of our dimension, outside of our time space continuum, which is what the Bible talks about as being the spiritual realm and where angels exist and live. All right. So if a spirit or an angel have spoken to him, let us not fight against God. And they're coming up with this little argument here, and even though they don't understand it, they are kind of philosophizing on the right side on how to handle it. Verse 10. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain feared lest Paul should be what? Pulled into pieces. So they weren't just sitting there all, sophisticated. They were moving around. They say down south, there was furniture moving. You know what that means, right? When you go down, you had a family reunion, and all of a sudden you start hearing furniture moving. Uncle Bob and Cousin Joe done got into a fight, and they done pushed the couch all over the place. It's like, my goodness, we can't get together at all, and they come in here and start rearranging the furniture. All right? So I think that's what was going on. These Pharisees and Sadducees, they were getting into it. There was a great dissension. And the captain of that province had to come in and get Paul. They're like, they're gonna rip him apart. All right. Now understand, this is what they ain't just talking. They would have killed Paul. You see, you ever see people give you idle threats? Yeah, I'll punch you in the head. But man, get out of my face. But there's some people that when they say, I'm gonna punch you in the face, you better know that if you understand what that person just said, you're gonna get hit if you don't act a certain way. There's certain people like that. Right? There's certain people you can threaten you. Man, yeah, he said he's gonna do that. But there's other people like, look, you don't get on my face, but you got to know which is which. Now, Paul was in this kind of situation. They will kill him. They're not trying to score no political points or nothing. No, they are going to take him out. And the captain recognizes this. And they went down there and they got Paul. They commanded the soldiers to go down and to take him by force from among them and to bring him into the castle. So now Paul's being brought in the castle. Now, Paul's sitting there and he's like, you can imagine, what in the world is going on? Because he tried. He tried. I mean, he really said, I want to get down here. I want to talk to my people. I need to speak to my people. And he finally gets a chance to address his people, and another riot breaks out, even bigger. Every time he goes into, he gets into a bigger riot, and now he's amongst his own family, his own brother, his own folk. And they're in there now, another riot. And You know, you almost could think, well, I mean, come on, you ever had those situations when you ready to, it's like, well, I guess I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I need to just quit. You know, those situations, but, you know, because you have that thing where, you know, you try this way, try it that way, try it left, try it right, try it up, try it down, try it back, try it forward, try it on the odd number, try it on the even number, try it on the dark, try it on the light, you know. You try it all kinds of different ways, you see. And the more you try it, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, and you just keep trying because you know that you believe in what you believe in. You know? So you say, okay, well, you don't quit. And you say, okay, try it red, try it green, try it orange, try it blue, try it purple, try it orange. You know, okay, none of that worked. All right, then you go back and say, okay, let's try it with a cat, try it with a dog, try it with a mouse, try it with a cock, try it with a fox, try it with that. And you, all right, that didn't work. You go back, okay, well, maybe it ain't that. Okay, let's try it with bricks, try it with cement, try it with tar. Just, yeah, I'm really beating this to death because I need you to understand that a lot of times is what life is like. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And Paul was in a situation where he's like, I don't know what else to try. I don't know what else to do. See, that's when you have to recognize you need to stop trying and just go to God. But in this situation, look what happens. God comes to Paul. Because really the thing that we have to recognize is in all our trying and trying and trying and trying and trying and trying, God is in control. Verse 11. And the night followed. And you could take that as a historical narrative or as symbolic. I think it probably means both. So a lot of times after you try everything, that's when they seem the what? The darkest. But the night followed. The Lord stood before him and said, be of good what? Cheer. Why would the Lord need to tell Paul to be of good cheer? The thing is, God doesn't encourage. He doesn't give incorrect information. He doesn't encourage because, well, he just wanted to say that. He's encouraging because you what? You need it. All right, you need that. So he said, be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also in where? In Rome. Now Paul made all this effort to get to Jerusalem, but God called him to be the apostle to the who? To the Gentiles. Right? So that's why he was supposed to talk to Ephesus and Galatia and to the Romans and to all these different provinces, because he was called to the Gentiles. Did you have a question?
Maybe that's why it was so difficult, and nothing that he did worked.
Exactly.
Because he was out of the will of God.
Yeah, and he was told that when you go down here, if you go to Jerusalem, if you go down there, this was going to happen. You're going to be in bonds. But Paul's like, I don't care. I'm ready to die. And that's that's cool. That's brave and all that. But it's one of those things where even though he went there, God still tells him, you are going to go to Rome. Don't be discouraged. And it's almost like God is saying, I know you had to feel like you had to do this, and the Lord let him do it. And now he's at a point where he's recognizing, okay, I went there, and I didn't accomplish what I thought I was going to accomplish, but now God comes to him and says, okay, now you're going to go to Rome. Don't be discouraged.
I'm not. With our children too.
Huh?
We do that with our children. It's like we give them a little rope.
Mm-hmm.
So you think you need to do this.
Go ahead and do it.
It's not detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
You let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they come back and finish what they did and got slapped around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is the way you should.
This is the way you should go. That's a very good point. And I tell you, we struggle with that. Sometimes and that's one of the hardest things of parenting is being able to just kind of step back and let your kid go on down a road, but they learn things down that road that you could never teach them. You just hoped that they didn't have to learn those lessons, that they would just believe you. There's something about faith. If you just believe God, then you can just go on and just do what he tells you to do. But sometimes we got to learn it the hard way. All right?
That's always hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And we try to let our kids know that, that y'all don't know, but I guess you're going to have to know because you feel like you got to go down that road. But once again, the Lord let Paul, but he told Paul, but don't be discouraged. You're still going to be used. I'm going to use you to talk and to speak and to testify of me in Rome. All right? So it says in verse 12, it says, and when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together and bonded themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. You think they were kidding? They want Paul, they want him dead. 13. And they were more than 40 which made this conspiracy. And they came to the chief priests and elders. Now they come to the chief priests and the elders of the Sanhedrin. Now remember, the body of the Sanhedrin is made up of Pharisees and Sadducees. And the Pharisees, as a group, were defending Paul initially. But the chief priests and the elders are all made up of a little bit of both. But those are the ones that are corrupt to the core. All right? So, and that's the thing. Sometimes the body may be a little bit willing to try to do what's right, but the heads were corrupt. So they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bounded ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. So now they're saying, now this is what you do. Help us with this. Now therefore, ye with the council signify to the chief captain, go tell the captain that grab Paul and put him in the castle, that he bring him down unto you on tomorrow, as though you would inquire something more perfectly concerning him. As though you wanted to question him. We really want to get to understand what Paul was talking about. We want to hear Paul again. Let Paul come down and discuss this matter with us, and maybe we can sit down and compromise and come to some understanding. But it's all a what? It's all a lie. All right? Concerning more perfectly concerning him, and we and when he ever comes near, we are ready to what? To kill him. 16. And when Paul's sister's son, or Paul's what? Nephew, heard of their lying in wait, he went. Now, wait a minute. Where was he at?
He was with the people. He was with them. He was with them.
He was somewhere around listening, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know how sometimes kids just be like, they all, and you don't pay kids no attention. Like, they look like little Miss area over here, right? Sometimes you think they just sitting around in the other room, and you just talking about this and and you think they ain't listening.
They are listening.
Oh man, they got, and their memories are tight. They got everything. And so when this little boy heard what was going on, not only did he hear it, he also understood it.
That's right.
He understood exactly what was going on, and he was there. Now, the people that were there might have seen him, maybe they didn't see him, and whatever. However the case was, God let this child hear this. Because wait a minute, didn't the Lord just tell Paul, you're going to go where? To Rome. So you think the Lord's going to let Paul be killed in Jerusalem?
Nope.
No.
It's not happening. And that's the thing. We will see. I mean, look at what's going on in our world today. We're fighting now 3 wars with 3 Muslim nations. We just bombed Libya. All right? We got the situation with Japan. They had the earthquake, the tsunami, and now the nuclear meltdown catastrophe going on. Jobs are at an all-time low. Our economy is crazy. The gas prices are unbelievable. All right? We got all types of situations politically going on, and you look at this now. The Bible says that in Revelations that there's going to come a time on earth where men's hearts will fail them because of fear. That's how bad it's going to get. The Bible calls these birth pains, and the Bible says that you'll know. Jesus says that you'll know that I'm coming because you'll see the birth pains. You'll see things happen, and when the birth pains get closer, you know that what? The baby's ready to be delivered. And he said, you watch the signs in the sky, the signs on the earth, and as these things, and as they get closer, you know that the Son of Man is soon to come. So we watch this stuff and we see it, and it's like, okay, okay, we figure, okay, well, we're never going to see anything like hurricane, we're never going to see anything like 9/11. All right, that's just. Then we say, okay, we're never going to see anything like Hurricane Katrina. Okay, you know what? We're never going to see anything like that tsunami that hit that other Indonesia, Thailand. We're never going to see that. Then it's like, well, all right, come on, it's time to wake up. Hello. All right, let's start paying attention and focusing and seeing what's going on, because it's real, and it's happening, and you're gonna have to deal with it. I got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. Our children are going to be having to deal with this. So it would be best for us to understand it, because at least you'll understand why, what's going on, and you're not taken by surprise. You're prepared and you understand. And you get your mind in the right place. Because see, one of the things that Paul said that I think is one of the most powerful things in Scripture, when your mind is right, but it's hard for us to do that because a lot of times we look at ourselves as like, wow, the Bible says Paul said, to be absent from the body is to be what? Present with the Lord. And that is such a powerful thing to understand, because we recognize that the physical death that we have is not the end of everything. But when you think that that's it, the whole of all things ends once a person dies, then it is devastating. So when you see a child that has been beaten and beaten to death, from an emotional human standpoint, you almost can't fathom it. You can't take it. And we should be that way. But from an eternal standpoint, we recognize, okay, Jesus said, suffer the what? Little children to come unto me. And it's difficult for us to understand. But then when we understand, if you look at the Scripture, the Bible says that, how much time do I got? All right, I don't got that much time, so I might as well just talk about this and we'll pick up the rest of it later. I was trying to figure out, if we had enough time to finish, I wouldn't go into this. But we don't have enough time to finish, so now I'm going to go into it. I got 4 minutes to explain this. When we look at ourselves and we see who we are, what we're made of, understand this, that how the Bible sees us. The Bible says that we were made from the what of the earth?
Dust.
Dust, okay. All right. Dust. What's another word for dust? Dirt. What's another name for it? Earth. Clay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So keep that in mind. That's what we're made of. All right. Nebuchadnezzar, a ruler in Babylon, had a dream, and in this dream, he couldn't remember the dream. And then, long story short, in the book of Daniel, he was going to kill all of his wise men because they couldn't tell him what the dream was, nor tell him what the meaning of the dream. God revealed the dream to Daniel and told Daniel, I gave the king this dream. Who gave the king the dream? God did. And then God gave the dream and the meaning of the dream to Daniel. Daniel then went to the king and said, don't kill all your people. Don't kill all your soothsayers and your astrologers. Don't kill them all because they couldn't tell you. Because they couldn't tell you anyway. Only God knows. And God has given it to me, and I'm going to tell you the dream. So in the dream, he dreamed about this statue. I'm sure y'all heard about the statue, right? The head of gold, shoulders of silver, loins of brass, legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with what?
Clay.
With clay. Okay? All right. So what he was saying, and then he gave him the description. He said, King, you and your kingdom is the head of gold. Now what was he saying to him? He was saying that you are living under the greatest and strongest and most prestige spiritual stronghold that there ever has been. So that's why you're the head of gold. The spiritual entities, the princes that are behind you, the demons that are behind you, have been given control to do all kinds of things and to put you in power, and you're the head of gold. And that's how powerful they are behind you. That's how enormous. Whatever words you can use to show that gold is the most precious metal, that's what that spiritual world is behind you. That's leading your kingdom. Your kingdom, you didn't get here because of you. You got here because God allowed these people to help you, these entities to help you. And we got to remember that we don't see them, but they are always working behind the scenes. So, make a long story short, next kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom. They overthrew the golden kingdom, all right? The silver kingdom, all right? And then after the Medo-Persian came the Grecian kingdom. Alexander the Great. He was the loins of brass. After Alexander the Great came the Roman kingdom. Roman kingdom was set up as iron. Now, the thing about iron, it might not have been the most elaborate and the most beautiful, but it was the strongest. And it was in two hemispheres, because Rome stretched from Byzantium all the way to Rome, and then its influence, the Roman style government, is now in all hemispheres, because even America has a Roman style government where we don't try a man like Paul. We don't condemn a man before he's what? Tried. All that comes from a lot of Roman influence. But understand this. All of these kingdoms were described as these types of precious and strong metal. The metal that we are mixed up with today, because the Bible says that in the last day he will come, and in that dream Jesus comes and destroys the statue. And when he comes, and in the dream it's described as a stone. Right? Jesus is a stone that the builders rejected. The stone comes and destroys the statue. The stone doesn't hit the statue in the head, nor on the breast, nor the shoulders, or the loins, or on the legs. It hits the statue on the feet. Now the feet were described as clay mixed with iron. So in the last days, there will become, I have to read this to you. There will come a time when the spiritual realm and man will work together. Now what does that mean then? That means that those spiritual demons and man acknowledge each other. You ever think about leaders that worship, satanic beings and all that kind of stuff? Well, what the Bible is saying is that they will then work together. But then the Bible says that, but they're going to try to come together, but they're not going to be able to. And I have to read it to you, because I can't describe it no better. Go to Daniel chapter 2. And we'll close with this. Daniel chapter 2. And go down to...
Hold on, wait till we get it.
We'll start at the 41st verse. How much?
40 what? 46, what do you say? 45?
40,
Which chapter?
Which one?
well, it's 41 as well, but you know what I'm thinking? Maybe we'll go up and read the whole thing real quick. So, Daniel chapter 2. And let's start at 31. 31. We'll take a second. Y'all give me a couple minutes just to read this?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Daniel chapter 2, verse 31. And it says, Thou, O king, sawest and beheld a great image. This great image was bright and was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image head was of fine gold, the breast and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of brass, the legs of iron, and the feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou wasest till that a stone was cut from without hands, and smote the image upon his feet, where the iron and clay, and break them into pieces. Then the iron and clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold were broken into pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away. So you see what happens. The whole system was going to be breaking up. All right, but now follow this. That no place was found for them, and the stone that smited the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. The stone that broke it was who? Jesus. And he's going to rule the whole earth. Okay, verse 36. This is the dream, and I will tell you the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art the king of kings, for God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom of power and strength and glory. He has a kingdom of what? Power, strength, and glory. All right. Whereas the children of men dwelleth the breasts of the fields and the fowls of heaven have given unto thee into thy hand, and have made thee ruler over them all. So his rulership didn't have any controversy. It didn't have any issues, and I can go on and on. But let's move along. And thou art the head of gold. After thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. So there's going to be one inferior to him, and then another one of brass. All right, and then it says, and the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as iron breaketh in pieces and subdues all things, and the iron shall break all these, it shall break into pieces and bruise. So iron's going to be that rule will be a very bruising kingdom. All right, verse 41. Whereas thou seest the feet and toes part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay. 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be part strong and partly broken. For whereas thou seest the iron mixed with the miry clay, it says it for the third time. You notice that, right? Watch this. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Did you see that? All right. Who is the they? Who is the they? Because we know that whoever the they are, they're going to try to mix their seed. They're going to try to mix themselves with the seed of what? Of men. All right. All right. So mix their seed with this, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. All right. Now I can go on and on and on, and what it goes on and describes here is how the Lord's going to destroy that whole system. But the point being is that you see how Daniel told that king, you are the king of gold, because behind you there's all kinds of stuff, and God is going to allow them to have all that power at that particular time. But there was going to come a time when the behind the scenes rule, who everything that's behind the scenes is ruled by the prince and power of the air. Who is who?
God.
The prince and power of the air right now is the devil.
It's the devil.
It's Satan. And he is going to try to come into an allegiance with men. But in order to do that, he has to what? Show himself. And so when he shows himself, you're going to have all kinds of powerful people, all kinds of people with influence, and that's how the Antichrist is going to eventually emerge. And so how it's going to happen, I don't know. That's why all I can do is read this. But I do know this: they're going to try to mix themselves with the seed of men, but it's not going to work. Now that they tried to do that before. Remember in Genesis when the angels came down and looked and saw the daughters of men, and came down and took the wives of all that they would. And then what did God have to do with that whole planet after all that happened? With what? With the flood.
That's what he did over there.
And with Noah, if you notice with Noah, God tells Noah, he said, I'm choosing you, Noah, because thou art perfect in all thy generations. See, that's why God picked Noah through the flood. Mm-hmm. Thou art perfect in all thy generations. What does that generations means? What? Your father's father, your mother, your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. All of your generation didn't allow them seeds to be mingled with the angels of men that came down to join with the daughters of men, the angels of God that came down to join us over the daughters of men. So your family line was what? Uncontaminated. Mm-hmm. So he said you are perfect in your generations. And so if you're perfect in your generations and your wife is perfect in her generations, which goes without saying, your children are what?
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So who was saved? Just Noah.
Noah and his family.
His family. And his sons and their wives.
Mm-hmm.
But what about if you was raised perfect and then you have brothers and sisters in them that don't do like, you know, how your household is and how perfect. Okay, say for instance, my grandpa was married to my grandmother all her life. She died before him. Mm-hmm. Okay, and all my brothers and sisters, and I'm the only one that's married in my mom's maiden name. And I'm just totally different from them. So it's like, I always got I'm going down now to see them. So as I'm going on the train, it's a breakdown, it's a broken vessel down there.
Right.
It's very broken down there. You know, and my sister's going through crisis and stuff with her children's in them. And like they're like, oh, auntie is coming. Like when I come, it's no. I'm like, I'm going to a war. I'm going to a war today. I'm going to a war. And Gabe just like telling me to be careful when I'm going down. By the time I come back Monday, I'm gonna be trying to get myself together for Tuesday for work. And then that's war at home. So how can I like, you know?
Well, in a situation like that, you really just have to pray and ask God to give you wisdom and to give the situation peace.
But it's still the same. It's like, it's not peace.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I'm up here and they down there. It's like me. I'm here in Beacon and my brother is like 45 minutes over from me.
Right.
And he's getting ready to sell his house and move further up. I told him I can't do that.
Right. Well, you're in a situation like Paul. Paul.
Yeah, I'm in that.
He's in a situation where no matter where he went, although he did not intend for riots and battles to break out. So you just got to know that within yourself, you're doing all that you can to give people, you know, a pleasant situation, give them peace, and pray and leave it in the hands of the Lord. Now, just to touching back, let me add this about what we was talking about this thing about Daniel, and you take this with along with you. What Daniel is saying is that there's stuff behind the scenes. That's what the whole statute was about.
Right.
There's things behind the scenes that rule the leadership. The king that Daniel was talking about, he wasn't gold. He was a human being.
Right.
But the strength behind your kingdom was a demonic force that God allowed to have an opportunity to rule and to have power. And he said, well, God allows that? Yeah, he does. He allows not only things for centuries in a ruling kingdom, he also allows stuff in your life. If you don't believe, look at Job. And I'm going through Job now. And one thing I always knew but just never really focused on, when I went to my personal study through Job, God looked at Job, and God called Satan. I always thought, for whatever reason, I always thought that Satan just bombarded the meat, and he says, give me somebody to pick on. But it was God. He said, what are you doing? And he says, I'm going looking to whom I can devour. And then God says, well, why don't you go pick on Job?
My servant.
Go pick on Job. And then God let all that happen. And all that stuff with his cattle being killed, his barns falling down, his sheep and camels being stolen, and his kids dying. That's what happened. But behind the scenes, who did that? Satan. So that's what Daniel was saying. Behind the scenes, king, you're the king, but behind the scenes, there's a prince, there's a power of the air. That's ruling. Remember when Jesus wanted to cast the demons out of the men? And they cried out, are you come to torment us before our time? We were told we can rule just for a certain period of time. Don't throw us into the abyss. Let us stay in our area. And Jesus said, okay, well then, you're coming out the man, but you can go into the swine. So you can stay here. I'm not going to throw you into the abyss. I'll let you rule for the time that has been agreed upon for you to rule. But there's coming a time when the stone is going to come, it's going to smash all these principalities and powers. But it won't happen until men and these entities try to intermingle themselves. That's what the stone, that's what the feet of clay and iron is all about. That's what's going on. Now, I said all of that to make this point. We are just clay. When we live and die, and when things hurt on us, because we're going to be greater than even that statue. God says that we're going to have a glorified body. When we die, we see children die, we see different ones die, and different ones. Remember, it's just the dust being removed from who you really are. The only thing that I see of you right now is the dirt, the dust that you're made of, which is one of the reasons why I think God, even in his wisdom, decided to initially form us from the dirt, the dust of the earth, knowing that that will be destroyed, and we will be raised in an even more glorified. That's why the Bible describes us, our resurrection body, as a what? As a glorified body. All right? And I don't know if our resurrection body will be symbolized as dirt or clay. It may be symbolized as something else. And whatever that symbolizes, it speaks of how glorious it shall be. But the point being, don't get so discouraged and confused when we see bad things happening to our dirt. Because that's what we are. Because God is in control. All right? And when something happens, when the doctor comes and when you take a shower and you wash all the dirt off you, are you mourning for that dirt? No. All that dead skin, it falls off you. It's like, it's got to go. It has to happen. All right? But the point being is that in this life, all of us are going to shed our dirt. We're all going to shed the dust. We're all going to shed. So it helps us. It helps our mind. Not that we're not still human. Not that we still don't feel. We still feel. But we do allow a sense of understanding that it's, it's not as devastating as it seems when I see things from that point of view. It's just the clay that's being hurt. It's not the person. It's just the clay. It's just the dirt. And they will recover. All right, I'm going to stop. I thank you for your patience. I know I went way past my time. All right, bro, would you please give us a benediction?